Good morning. We're here to speak about Zionism and U.S. imperialism. So, go ahead and start. So, siblings, we know what Israel is. It is one large U.S. Army base. And before that, it was one large British Army base. The role of Israel is to maintain U.S. and Western hegemony over the Arab world and the Middle East. And it was placed there and established as an illegitimate state in 1948 for that reason specifically. It is there to ensure that any resistance and any dissent against U.S. imperialism and reactionary Arab regimes is neutralized. Israeli policy must not be viewed as separate from U.S. policy. It belongs 100% to the U.S. The weapons and resources are sold or granted by the United States, and it is informed about the majority of, if not all, military and political decisions. The U.S. supports this genocide that is happening right now unequivocally. The level of violation of international law, of brazen disregard for international diplomacy that we see from Israel and the United States right now is unprecedented. The United States has made it clear that it does not care about international law and that it will veto or not force Israel to abide by United Nations Security Council resolutions. That will not allow anything or anyone to threaten the existence of Israel, its watchdog in the Arab world. I don't think anyone in this room could have ever thought that a genocide that has already killed close to 35,000 Palestinians would be live streamed into our homes and that the United States would justify it, but that's what's happening. And the United States is showing the world how far it's willing to do, how far it's willing to go, and how much it's willing to do. And it is capable of doing more. And it is clear to all those who understand Netanyahu, the Israeli government, and the Israeli society that Israel's recent escalation against an Iranian diplomatic target in Syria and against Hezbollah and Iraqi targets is its way of trying to pull the United States even further into its quagmire. I do not believe it will happen, but Netanyahu only cares about his political survival at this point and will kill another 100,000 Palestinians and Arabs if he knew it would do the trick. In addition, the United States bully is also coming for those who are resisting, whether in Palestine or the United States or South Africa or all around the world. Our Palestinian-led mass movement is doing some incredible things in our streets, and law enforcement and Zionists are using all the tactics of repression in their arsenals, especially against students and community-based organizers and organizations. The brave people and government of South Africa stood up and brought a case against Israel to the International Court of Justice. And just 2 weeks ago, U.S. Palestinian Community Network, my organization, and the National Alliance Against Racism Political Repression, one of the most important black liberation organizations in the entire United States, met with the brilliant South African Foreign Minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor. She told us there is a bipartisan bill in D.C. threatening sanctions, with one co-sponsor saying, "It is clear to me that the ANC of today is no longer the party of Nelson Mandela, and I am greatly concerned with South Africa's alignment with China and Russia and embracement of Hamas in the wake of the devastating October 7th attacks." And another bill saying, "South African officials have made a miscalculation by aligning themselves with Russia and China. It is in our national security interest for the United States to review our relationships with nations that may not share our values and align themselves with such actors." Shame. So this is pretty clear that the United States is in the process of preparing sanctions against South Africa for their brave stance with the Palestinian people. This is a message to all the world. But while the United States and Israel dig in, we're also witnessing a rise in the level, will, and ability of the resistance axis in the Arab world. I don't need to tell all of you, but regardless of what we hear from CNN and BBC and MSNBC and other corporate media every day, this isn't Israel versus Hamas. The Palestinian resistance represents all of the political movements, ideological trends, and social sectors of Palestinian society. Yes, Hamas has the strongest military of them all in Gaza, but the Marxist-Leninist forces and the other Muslim forces, the social democratic forces, the nationalist forces, and even the Fatah-led forces are all fighting to defend the Palestinian people from ethnic cleansing and genocide, and are fighting under a unified military command. And if you want to know more about what they're doing, you could always read Al-Mayadeen English on the web, and then tune in to Electronic Intifada's podcast that has been providing not only great news, but great military analysis of the resistance in English. In addition, of course, we see that the incredible resistance in Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, and Iran's refusal to back down from the United States threats, all playing critical roles in making sure that the Palestinian resistance has the support it needs, ensuring that Israel's military cannot focus exclusively on Gaza, keeping the United States and other imperialist countries on their toes. Keeping the United States and other imperialist countries on their toes in the region and leveling the playing field a tiny bit. Even the narrative in this country is starting to shift. Although slowly, but because of the pressure that we in the United States Palestine support movement are putting on the complicit Democrats, and the fear that they may lose voters and develop an even wider rift with their base. It is also because we have been shutting shit down. Disrupting Genocide Joe and his cronies everywhere they gather, starting with a sit-in that for example, a sit-in that my organization, United States Palestinian Community Network, organized in Chicago in Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky's office, less than 2 weeks after October 7th, which was one of the first arrests of those resisting the genocide occurred. Schakowsky and Polkin and others just recently calling for a suspension of weapons sales, and Biden claiming on Thursday that he's demanding a ceasefire are a result of our organizing pressure, but it's too little, too late. The United States and Biden are trying to save face and blame Netanyahu as a bad actor, instead of Zionism and racism and settler colonialism and white supremacy and US imperialism. But they won't recover. The Democratic Party won't recover, and United States imperialism won't recover. The Palestinian resistance and our fight for national liberation are hastening US imperialism's decline, which we have been witnessing now for years. The United States is fighting a losing NATO war in Ukraine. It is spending a ton of money and political and diplomatic capital in Israel. It is losing its grip on Latin America, on Africa. China is becoming more dominant, not just in Asia, but expanding its influence with the Belt and Road Initiative in Africa and beyond as well. Internally, here in the United States, we are dealing with massive economic and political crisis as well. Important sectors in the Black liberation, Chicano liberation, indigenous liberation, immigrant rights, and other national liberation and oppressed nationality movements are rising up against a system of injustice, racism, white supremacy, and capitalism that are inherent to the United States. These are all signs of a declining US imperialism, and Palestine and Palestinians are at the forefront, inspiring the whole world with our sacrifices, our steadfastness, and our resistance. Of course, we mourn our martyrs every day and know how brutally difficult it is to read the news and study the stats and watch the videos. But I just want to remind everybody, Algeria lost more than 1 million beautiful souls in its battle for its independence. Vietnam lost more than 3 million beautiful souls to kick the goddamn French and US imperialists out of their nation. And we in Palestine will do the same. Palestine is the anti-war and anti-intervention question of our time. A free Palestine and the return of all refugees and their descendants not only frees Palestinians from the shackles of Zionism, racism, and national oppression, but will also cut off a huge tentacle of US imperialism in the world, aiding, abetting, and inspiring millions more to rise up and do just the same in the whole globe. And as USPCN constantly says and writes in all of our releases and statements, eventually the whole world acknowledge that South Africa had no right to exist as a racist, apartheid, white supremacist, settler colonial state. And eventually, the whole world will come to the realization that Israel has no right to exist as a racist, apartheid, white supremacist, settler colonialist, Zionist state. So, this is the time to revive and reignite the anti-war movement. It has to become what it was during Vietnam in the 60s. And it has to continue to grow. Because we know what the US wants. And they're going after China next. So this is the time to revive the anti-war movement in this country. It has to be the biggest in the history. And so make no mistakes. With our support in the United States and the support of hundreds of millions of others working and oppressed people across the world, Palestine is currently winning and will ultimately win with its full and total liberation on every inch of our land. And like we say in Arabic, min al-mayya lal-mayya, Palestine Arabiya, from the water to the water, Palestine is Arab land. From the river to the sea, from the river to the sea, all power to the people. Thank you.